Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we're going to go over some things that you should know before you go to the range for the first time. I'm also going to show you what I carry in my range bag. So if this interests you, please keep watching. Okay, so before we get started, we're going to do a quick RSO check, make sure all firearms are unloaded. So I have my Glock Gen 5 here. It is empty. I'll add a video here showing me checking it as well. So from this point on, we're going to treat the firearm as if it's empty. I'm going to add this dry fire magazine to it now. What it does is it allows me to pull the trigger and it gives a click. What allows me to pull the trigger so I can get basically good trigger pull manipulation. I can do some dry fire drills. So we're going to insert that now. All right, so it's a clear and safe weapon with a dry fire mag in it. All right, so now that that's out of the way, the first thing that you need to know before you go to the range, or even before you buy a firearm, are the 4 firearm safety rules. All right, this is a given. You must know these and you must follow them. If you follow these rules, chances of a negligent discharge or accidental shooting are dramatically decreased. All right, so let's get into it. 1, always treat every firearm as if it's loaded. 2, never point your firearm at anything you're not willing to destroy. 3, always keep your fingers straight and off the trigger until you're ready to fire. 4, always be sure of your target and what's beyond. So those are the 4 basic firearm safety rules. Now, other people the verbiage might change from person to person, but they're generally the same thing. So now that we have the 4 safety rules out of the way, we're going to go over the 7 fundamentals of marksmanship. Now, just like the 4 safety rules, people kind of add their own verbiage, twist it a little bit, but they're generally saying the same thing. So here we go. 1, stance. You have your Weaver stance, which is more of your old school police stance. You see in a lot of old school movies where they're kind of standing like this arm straight, this arm canted, and their bodies contorted. And that stance was more in line with you wanted to make yourself a smaller target. So this is me here versus this is me in the Weaver stance. So you kind of want to you want to present a smaller target. Now, that stance takes a little bit of practice. It's not natural, but it takes a little bit of practice and you can be very accurate with it. The next stance is going to be your isosceles stance, which is basically your feet are shoulder width apart or slightly shoulder width apart. Your chest is square to the target or threat, and your arms are straight out. So you're making an isosceles triangle with your arms. I'll insert pictures for each stance here, but what that'll look like is this here. So you're basically presented straight to your target. This is more natural and normal. If you give a new shooter a gun, they will probably shoot with their body squared to the target. Now, the reason that this style came into play is advancements in body armor. So I have body armor here from a previous video still. So let's take this off. So because you have body armor now, and we'll try to toss it on real quick. Okay. So because you have body armor now, you don't want to move to the Weaver stance because now all of this here is open. So you want to stay square to the target. So now if you do take rounds, everything is impacting your hard plates. So hopefully that makes sense. So that's kind of when that started to take off. I want to say late 80s, early 90s. Now the next The next stance is almost a combination of both. And this is what I use most of the time just because of my background. It's more of a fighting stance or a combat stance. And it's a little more aggressive. It's your top half is still square to the target, like the isosceles, but your lower half is slightly canted. So your lead foot, so I'm right-handed, so my lead foot would be my left foot. So my lead foot is slightly forward. My rear foot is slightly back, almost like a boxer stance, or I do Muay Thai, or like a Muay Thai stance. So that is because we started incorporating movement into it. So running from A to B and then C or whatever. But we incorporated movement into things. So more of a tactical type stance. And you're kind of more lean forward. And the reason you do this is not so necessary with pistols, but when you start to carry larger firearms such as shotguns, you want to get a little more of your body into the weapon system so that you can absorb the recoil. So most people kind of keep the same stance through every platform, so they don't really have to think about it. It just becomes muscle memory no matter what they have in hand. Okay. So those are the stances. So the second fundamentals of marksmanship is grip. Now, I don't have a revolver in here with me. I'm not going to go grab it, and I'm not going to do another safety check. So you just have to take my word for it. I'll kind of explain it to you. And so when you're gripping a firearm, you want to grab it. This is the back strap. You want to grab it as high and tight in this area here. You want to get the weapon of your hand as high in this area here. All right. Wrap your fingers around it. So if this is a one-handed grip, that's it. Hey, that's cool. And also, if you notice, what we're doing right now is safety rule number 3. Keep your finger straight and off the trigger at all times. All right. This needs to be muscle memory. Now, back to grip. So now if you notice, there's space here. So I want to fill this space because you have to think about it physics. If there's, once this firearm is, the explosion happened, it's going to go, the slide is going to cycle back and it's going to go the path of least resistance. So since I have nothing here, the firearm is going to go over here. And I'm going to need to fight more to get it back on target in between multiple shots. So what I'm going to do is fill this free space up with this portion of my hand. So I'm just going to rotate it in. And what I do is I rotate my thumb forward. So as you see, it ends up being parallel. My index, my pointer finger and my thumb ends up being parallel to each other. And I just gently lay this thumb here. Now you're going to hear some people say 60-40, and then what that means is they squeeze 60% with this one, squeeze 40% with this one, and whatnot. If you're a new shooter, I'm gonna say do equal pressure, 50-50. You know, you can tweak it after that. But when you're just beginning, do 50-50. So I'm just gonna do equal pressure on both sides, and what that will do is it won't allow my sights to deviate from one side if I'm squeezing too hard with my right or too hard with my left, or pushing my thumbs, and my thumbs are just gently on the frame of the slot of the firearm. All right, so that's grip. Next is going to be sight alignment, and what sight alignment is, you have your rear sight and your front sight. So see if that come in. We'll do a close up of you have your rear sight and your front sight. So you want to, okay, next we're going to lump the next two together: sight alignment and sight picture. So sight alignment is a relationship of your rear sight with your front sight. So here's an image of your rear sight. And here's an image of your front sight. So sight alignment is a relationship of your sights. So you want equal height and equal space left to right. So if it looks like this, you're shooting low. If it looks like this, you're shooting high. And please forgive me, I'll have to include it in there because it's reversed for me. So if you're shooting here, you're going to the left. If you're shooting here, you're going to the right. All right. So another good way to think of sight alignment is think of the term castle. So it looks like a castle, like the top half of a castle on a chess piece. Now, sight picture is you want your front sight to be more in focus. So you want a clear front sight and a blurry rear sight. All right. Now with sight picture, you're going to take that and place it onto your target. All right. So sight picture is going to be a clear front sight and a blurry rear sight. And we're going to use this box as our target. So you're going to align your sights onto your target. So the only thing that's going to be clear is your front sight, and your rear sight is going to be blurry, and your target is going to be blurry. So target in focus, target blurry, front sight in focus. All right. Now a good way to think of it is you want to look through your rear sight like a window at your front sight. So you're looking through your rear sight like a window at your front sight. All right. So that's sight alignment, sight picture. Okay. So now that was sight picture. So now we're going to go over trigger control. So trigger control is the manipulation of your trigger. All right. So, excuse me. So what you want to do is you want to squeeze your trigger. So one way that it was said to me that is kind of easy to understand is that you want to squeeze your trigger like you're squeezing a single drop out of a Visine, eyedropper. So just nice and gentle and pulling it slowly to the rear. Now, what you want to do is, as you can see, there's a ledge here. You want to don't put your finger here in the center. Put your finger at the bottom and basically drag it down until you get a click. All right. What that does is it stops you from, when you have your finger on here, it stops you from tweaking, jerking. You just keep, like I said, keep it at the bottom here along the trigger guard at the bottom, and just drag the tip of the trigger back. All right. Now, when you get to the back, so this here is called play, and then this here is, this here is the wall. So now that I'm at the wall, I know that it's going to break after that. Once you get back here, after the break, don't hold it. Don't pin your trigger back. John Lovell has a video where he says on, off, on, off, on, off. I'm not going to say that because I don't want you to be so aggressive with it yet. Later on, yes, that's really, really good. But right now, let's just nice and slow to the rear. Take your finger off. Then go through the whole thing again. Now, once you get a little bit more skill, a little more reps under your belt, what you can start doing is you can just start doing trigger reset. Fire. Once the trigger resets, you don't go any farther. All right. And you're already, so basically what that does is you're taking out, you're not even reintroducing this slack into the trigger. And each firearm is different. So I'm going to remove this here and show you. So slack. So you see all that slack. So here, there's it firing. That's the wall. Bang. All right. So I'm going to recycle. Now you hear the click. I'm going to stop there. There's the wall. Boom. All right. So hopefully that makes sense with trigger control. All right. Dry fire mag back in. All right. Next is breathing. On pistols, breathing doesn't really apply too much unless you're hyperventilating or you're shooting at distance. But let's say anywhere between 15 and in, breathing isn't going to affect you that much unless you're really doing some competition shooting. So now with rifles, because of the breath and the longer barrel, you see a bigger impact. So you kind of want to take your shot at the natural pause. Don't try to hold your breath, because you hold your breath, you start shaking, you start losing vision, and it's just not good. So just take a regular breath at that normal pause, take your shot. But with pistols, breathing isn't really a big deal. So keep that in mind. Okay. Next is going to be follow through. And we kind of covered follow through. Part of follow through is doing that trigger reset or off and on. All right. But what that also means is you want to keep looking at your sights. You'll see people, we call it parry dogging or turkey necking. They'll take their shot and then they're instantly looking for where that round is going. What that ends up doing, because you don't really know when that shot is going off, you want it to be a surprise that you're doing this and dropping it before you even fire the shot. Or you're introducing slight movements because you're concentrating on what you're trying to do next versus what you're actually doing at the moment. So just basically follow through. As you're out, you're on target, sights are aligned, nice slow squeeze to the rear, release, trigger reset, still looking at your sights, front sight focus. Then if you decide that you want to take a look at your target, bring your finger straight off the trigger, bring your firearm back, then look up at your target when you're ready. Go back out, present the target, focusing on your front sight. Nice slow squeeze to the rear. All right, I want to look at the target. So hopefully that made sense. Okay, now out of those 7 fundamentals, there are 3 that are super important. All right, and we're going to go back through the 7 and just tell you why they're not so important. So, okay, so 1, stance. It's not super important because you're not always standing. You could be shooting from a seated position, a prone position, from your back, on your stomach, a bazillion kinds of ways. So it doesn't matter. As long as you have a stable platform at the moment the shot breaks, your stance isn't that important overall. Next is going to be your grip. Now, grip isn't in the top 3, but I'm going to say it's a top 4. But your grip doesn't matter. You can have a crappy grip and still get rounds on target. You might not have a consistent group because you have a sloppy grip, but you can still get rounds on target with the bad grip. There's videos of people shooting their firearm upside down, hitting the target. All right. So it's not grip. Now, sight alignment. Sight alignment is very important. If your sights aren't on target, then it doesn't matter. I'm going to say sight alignment, let's say is 3. Could be 2, but I'm going to go with 3. So sight alignment is important. Next one, sight picture. Sight picture is also important. I can have my sights aligned, but if they're not on target, I'm not going to hit I'm not going to hit my intended target. So sight picture is number 2 for me. Next, the most important one is trigger control. You can have all 6 of the fundamentals down to a T. If I'm sloppy on this trigger, I messed all of it up. It's all over. So I can have too much finger in the trigger like this, and what ends up happening, I end up kanking over here. I can have too little finger in the trigger. And some people are going to say, hey, use the pad of the finger, use this first joint. It depends on the firearm. Depends on what you're shooting and what you're comfortable with. I use the front part of the pad, and that's what works for me. So I will say anywhere up here, just practice. See what works for you. See how your body works and go from there. Now, if trigger control is super important, that means breathing and follow through are not as important as well. I'm going to say follow through is in the top 5. So follow through will be number 5. Actually, you know what? Let's drop grip down to 5 and follow through is going to be 4. So that's going to be my top 5 and we'll list them here. So now back to the most important one, trigger pull or trigger control. So everything's lined up and I jerked the trigger at the last minute. I squeezed too hard. I anticipated. So that's why trigger control is the most important thing. All right. So we're going to sit this off to the side. Clear. And now we're going to go. Okay, guys. So this video is getting a little bit long. I know I said that I was going to do a video of what I keep in my range bag. So I'm just going to break that down into another video to save time. And that'll be next week's video. So today's word of the day is going to be failure to fire. Failure to fire, a situation in which the firearm is incapable of discharging a round. Please like, share, and subscribe. Comment below. If you have any suggestions for future videos, please feel free to share them. And also check out these 2 videos here.